Kagurabachi Chapter 96 is here, and it comes with a brand new illustration of Chihiro done by Horikoshi, the author of My Hero Academia. As part of the 2-year anniversary celebrating Kagurabachi, Horikoshi drew Chihiro, and Hokuzono actually drew Deku. And here's a look at that. Both of them absolutely cooked. And I apologize on getting this video out late today, y'all. I've been out of town all weekend, and I just got back, so let's dive into some peek. Alright, so Chapter 96 is titled Urgency, and it actually begins with this brand new double color spread from Hokuzono. This man has been working to the bone the past few weeks with all of like the special Kagurabachi anniversary stuff going. And if you recall, last chapter there were some rough sketches, probably due to him being overworked and on these time constraints. And there are some rough sketches in this chapter as well. But this double color spread is gorgeous. But chapter 96 proper begins with Ichiki basically turning to an unnamed, unfaced, because it's a rough sketch, member of the Kamunabi, and saying, summon Shiba and Hiyuki to headquarters. And this Kamunabi guy is like, wait, but Ichiki just says, we can get by with minimal security for the other sword bearers. If they kill the sword master, the eternal contracts will kill the other sword bearers anyway. We need to stop them right now, no matter what. We then cut back to the fight between Yura and everyone else, and we see Yura, Iruha, and Natsuki all basically recognize something. They can sense a presence. And then we get this huge panel of both the Inten and the Tobemune enchanted blades, and they basically realize they're here. And Iruha even says, Mr. Samura, and then he thinks to himself, Chihiro, you did it. The two of them are nearby, and they're together. They'll be here soon. We see that Yura also recognizes this, and then Azami, who has just stepped into the room, says he's gonna use the Tsunuchi's powers. He intends to kill the Swordmaster. In any case, we cannot let him move freely. And Iruha says, but why? And Azami just says, they'll arrive soon. Until then, we hold him off here. Iruha thinks to himself, so that was the Tsunuchi's power. This is where Chihiro's centipede came from. In that case, and then he yells up, Mr. Azami! And Azami says, yeah, I got it. And then he goes, Natsuki! And Natsuki looks at Iruha and he says, I know, I'm not dumb. We then cut back to Azami, who is doing his little finger point sorcery thing that we've seen teased, except now we see him say, coin, as he basically flicks this energy into a coin that starts flipping up in the air. And Yura thinks to himself, sorcery. And out loud he says, a coin? Are we gambling? I like it. And then we see Azami's internal monologue, and he says, that's Yura, the Hishaku's leader. He was also at the Rakuzaichi. Out loud he says, I'm not surprised, but it's nothing that risky. And then he thinks to himself, this is the man behind Rokuhira's death. And then we have this huge full-page panel of Azami, Natsuki, and Iruha all jumping Yura. We then cut back to Ichiki, who has also sensed the presence of Samura and Chihiro's enchanted blades. But that confuses him, because he thinks, why haven't they just come straight to us? With Samura's powers, they should be able to teleport directly to us. Then the Kamunabi guy that he told to contact Shiba and Hiyuki comes back, and he says, Mr. Ichiki. And Ichiki says, did you contact them? And he says, I can't get through. And they say, what? Is it the force field? And then Ichiki looks at Kasen and says, you did something to it. And Kasen says, amidst the confusion, my comrades did good work. Now we're cut off from the outside. And Ichiki thinks to himself, did they modify it to prevent Inten and Tobemune from entering? 2 enchanted blades? Is that even possible? No. The original settings repel all sorcerers who aren't Kamunabi. To apply that to the Inten and the Tobemune, they'd have to focus its entire capacity against those 2 blades alone. Then he out loud says, even if it worked, it wouldn't take long for Samura and company to break through. A few minutes at most. And Kasen just laughs. He then cut back to this clash with Yura with the tagline, everything hinges on just a few minutes, and we see that he is once again casting Centipede. We then cut back to Kasen, who says, the sorcerers here are pretty much defenseless, and you know this. With the Tsunuchi's powers, a few minutes is plenty of time to wreak total obliteration. And as he says the total obliteration line, we see Iruha and Natsuki having been flung to the side, injured, basically collapsed amongst the rubble. Kasen then continues and says, you witnessed it at the Rakuzaichi. Even the Inten and Flamebone together could barely stand up to it. sorcerers bearing conventional weapons have no hope of even buying time. We then cut back to the fight to see Yura still standing tall, basically unscathed from the centipede. And Yura is baffled by this. He's thinking to himself, he resisted? No. And then we see Iruha's internal monologue. And again, he's beaten and battered on the ground right now. And he's thinking, centipede attacks all around. But there's a gap where its force is weaker. And he basically discovered this by looking at the pillars in this room. Only one of them survived the previous centipede, and it was the one directly behind Yura when he cast it. And Iruha continues and says, and like Cloud Gougers may, there's a recovery period for using centipede. Azami then thinks to himself, Iruha and Natsuki understood instantly. They used themselves as bait to lure the centipede and allow me to take shelter behind Yura. Chihiro and Samura still haven't arrived. Something must be keeping them. It doesn't matter. My job is the same. And Yura just says, buying time, and then Azami is just gone in an instant and appears behind him. Like, we're talking flash step style. And Yura's thinking to himself, he's faster somehow. Could it be a physical augmentation spell like Iruha's? And then we see Yura cast Dragonfly. So as Yura basically uses Dragonfly to rebuke this attack from Azami, he says, don't bother. Without the enchanted blades, you don't stand a chance. But then he recognizes the coin that Azami had, and there's actually multiple coins, all like sparkling with energy or electricity, sorcery, I guess. And he's like taken aback by this. We then cut to like this aside. We just see a TV playing, and it's like an infomercial that's playing on the TV, and it says, amazing health benefits from everyday objects. Today we'll present our special secret recipe. It's the 11 yen treatment. And the narrator says, it's a well-known home remedy. The different ionization characteristics of two different metals produce a faint electrical current. Simply tape them to the affected area for amazing results. It regulates the electrical currents within the body to relieve muscle tension and pain. The technique was popularized by a certain local doctor. Rumor has it he was able to utilize the intrinsic electrical current in coins to cure even serious illnesses. The true secret, though, was sorcery, passed down through the Azami lineage over generations, until a certain hot-blooded only son of the family adopted the sorcery for combat. And then kind of like in this flashback, we see what I presume to be maybe Azami's father say, how dare you bastardize our heritage, you stupid brat. Get out. We then cut out of this aside back to the fight where the narrator continues and says, on the one hand, the power could be used to accelerate the user's blood circulation, enhancing their own physical performance. But on the other hand, it could intensely stimulate the muscle fibers of an opponent. And then we get this like full page panel of all of these coins surrounding Yura and this electrical current shooting through all of them, basically obliterating him, like blood splurting out. He's getting like completely shocked. It looks so cool. Yura thinks so he was bluffing when he pretended that he was unarmed. Sorcery is his true strength. But is that all he can do? Azami just stares him down and clenches his fist full of blood and says, don't worry, my real strength is my fists. He then absolutely slams Yura with a diabolical kidney shot, and Yura is just like hunched over from the blow, and he thinks to himself, he did that with a broken arm. And again, we just see Azami's hand like busted and bleeding after that blow, and Iruha just cracks a smile. Azami just has this crazed look in his eyes. He looks at Yura and he goes, you sure you good with this? Chilling out here with us for so long? And that's where the chapter ends. Absolutely peak, man. Bro, crazed Azami goes incredibly hard. I'm so here for this. And what a cool, like, setup of the stakes, right? Samura and Chihiro are here, but they can't get in, right? So Azami and Ko, Iruha, Natsuki, just have to stall him long enough so that those two can get in here. Will they be able to do it? And plus, we got Hakuto, seemingly still around, but, Yura did tell him to, like, continue on, I think, right? So I don't know if he'll necessarily jump in and help against these three or not, but we got Sanuchi versus 3 S-tier level players, and I don't know if Iruha and Natsuki are already completely out of commission or not. I'm not I'm not mad if they are. The 1v1 with Azami here would be pretty sick. Azami's sorcery is really cool. I like how it has both like support tendencies and offensive capabilities. You know, he's basically able to augment his own stats by manipulating the electrical current within his own body. Kind of reminded me of like how blood manipulation users can dope their own blood to increase their stats. It's kind of like that. But then he can use it against other people. Like he can basically like shut down your own electrical system. And there's so much like cool stuff you could potentially do with this. Like I wonder if he could enhance other people, like giving them the good benefits of the electricity. I mean, I think he would, since this whole thing originated as like a healing doctor practice, right? So that could be really cool. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on it. Anyways, that's gonna do it for this one, y'all. Again, my apologies on getting this out so late today. I've just been playing catch up ever since getting back in town. So thank you so much for your patience, and as always, thank you for watching.